Hello and welcome to another episode of the Peninsula Biz Buzz. My name is Shelley Smith. I'm here representing my own company, Premier Rapport, as well as being the Chamber Liaison for PenCherm. Over to you, Bob.
Hey, good morning. Bob McKenna from the Peninsula Chamber, President and CEO of the Peninsula Chamber. And we're here today with Rob Shuford, who is the President of Old Point National Bank. Also, I think the longest serving member of the Peninsula Chamber's Executive Committee and Board. And he loves what he does.
Don't let me off.
And we need him. I always feel comfort when Rob walks in the office because he's got such great experience and wisdom. He is also, and I always say this, most importantly, he is a veteran of the world's finest fighting force, the United States Navy. So Rob, let me go right in by saying we had a meeting yesterday and I was talking to Craig Quigley from Harumfa. And he has an Old Point member on the Harumfa board. And she was talking about the new normal. And she said that she goes to bed early at night and then she gets up at like 1 o'clock in the morning because the bandwidth is better and she starts working on Paycheck Protection Program applications. And I said, boy, that gives a whole new meaning to the word banker hours because it sounds more like surface warfare officer hours, like you get up and stand in midwatch, right? And then work all day.
That's exactly what we're doing. And that's Cindy Black, and she is a phenomenal member of the Old Point team. And yes, because of the issues with the SBA E-Trans platform, in order to serve as many customers as possible, as many businesses in the Hampton Roads region as possible, we're trying to find hours when there's fewer users on the system. And so, yes, we have employees, to put it in Navy jargon, they're standing watches round the clock. We don't have a dog watch, but we are standing watches. And Cindy, I think, has been taking the mid.
Well, that's so Shelley, dog watches are, you break up one of the watches into two 2-hour watches instead of a 4-hour watch, and that's for watch rotation purposes. So your son will find out all about that when he gets
very soon. I was just gonna say that, and he's on his countdown, just so everybody knows.
Yeah,
fingers crossed he leaves on the 20th.
So I love when we drop surface warfare officer terms. That was great, Rob. So what I'm hearing around the community is Old Point is doing a bang-up job on the Paycheck Protection Program applications and doing fantastic work and serving their customers very well. And that's anecdotal, but I know it to be true because I know Old Point's reputation. I know Rob, I know Sharon Martin, I know Joe Witt, several of the other people there, and I know that they do great work. But Rob, can you talk a little bit about Paycheck Protection Program and where it is right now and where do you think we're going with it?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, Old Point, we were following the legislation, the CARES Act legislation, very closely through the legislative process. And so we were well aware of this program, what the potential positive implications would be, not just for our region, but for the country. And so as soon as it was approved, actually even before it was approved, we went into action. And our team started following the updates from the SBA every single day. As you may recall, it took about 48 hours or so for some information to start coming out of the SBA. I think the act was passed on Friday, and by Tuesday, we were starting to get some information. The team had sprung into action before it passed, and so we were ready. And we knew that they would stand up this portal as soon as they could. And we also knew that there would be some issues because of the amount of attention. Just to put things in context, I think the numbers I've heard are the SBA does about 70,000 loans per year. And now they're doing probably 100,000 loans a day. I don't quote me on that, but it's crazy. It's just crazy. So the Old Point team reached out to customers, and we were able to start the underwriting process before the system went live on Friday. We actually were in the system at 3:30 a.m. on that Friday when it went live, and perhaps might have been probably one of the first banks in the country to actually get loans approved. And we've been approving loans ever since then. work through the weekend, literally working 24 hours a day. That became even more critical on Monday. Over the weekend, the SBA was approving 100 to 150 new banks, new SBA lending banks per hour. And so when the West Coast came online about mid-morning on Monday morning, the whole system went down, and it went down for about 4 hours. And that's when we knew we would have to literally go on 24-hour shifts. And that's what we've done. So we're moving as many loans through here as possible. You know, Old Point is in an interesting situation. We took the position early on that we would deal with customers and also non-customers, particularly ones that are known to us. As you might imagine, there's very strict guidelines for making sure that the customers passed identity tests, and the know your customer regulations are in effect, and we understand their beneficial ownership and a host of other things that are not completely covered in that very simple one-page application that the SBA put out. And so we are talking to people that are non-customers. I told the team this morning, I'm calling them new customers because these are people that we are willing to help that other banks are not willing to help. And so we're doing the best we can. We're pushing the applications through the system as fast as possible. We've probably gotten nearly 500 applications and almost 100, that represents almost $100 million worth of loan requests. As of yesterday, we had processed and gotten approval for half of that pipeline, which I think if you talk to other banks, they're not nearly that far along in their pipeline. Now, larger banks are going to have bigger numbers. There's the other banks that we work with around here are 10 or even 20 times our size. Those are the local banks. Obviously, the big banks like Wells and others are many, 100 times our size. So you have to put things in context. But to be about halfway through our pipeline of requests is phenomenal. I'll put that up against any bank in the country right now. So that's where we are with the program. When I hear the stories coming back from our relationship officers, when they make that phone call and tell the customer that their loan has been authorized by the SBA, the reactions are just amazing. And it's why we do what we do. People break down in tears. They say, you've literally saved my life and my business that I spent my whole life building. You're saving my employees. They didn't know how they were going to put food on the table. The reactions are just astounding. And that's what keeps the team going, literally working 18-hour days and 24-hour shifts. So 20 shifts around the clock. So it's a huge effort, and many banks are doing that now. But we're really proud that Old Point was very much on the forefront of this, had created a process for this. Actually, just yesterday, we've been working on so many different solutions to speed up this process. We've been talking to 9 or 10 different fintechs. I signed a contract 2 nights ago for an online application that we're testing now. So we're doing everything we can to speed up this process. But everyone's in the same boat. To my knowledge, every application must go through this E-Tran portal for the SBA, and all that stuff has to be keyed in manually. There are some more automated solutions that are coming down the pike, but they basically just speed up the manual part of the process. They're not truly automated.
So Rob, everything you're telling me is Old Point is a great example of adapting to our new environment. And so you've obviously changed things. Bankers' hours, as we said at the beginning, have changed. The way your team is set up has changed. I'm assuming that some people are working from home. Is that correct?
We have a huge number of people working from home. We also have a retail component to the bank, obviously, and so we have been able to maintain all of our branches open, drive-throughs with lobbies by appointment. But quite frankly, with all of the technology that we have at our disposal, there is really no necessity to come into the lobby during this period. We can have Zoom or Skype calls with people. We can handle many things through our digital platforms, and pretty much any transaction that you need to accomplish can be done through the drive-through if we need to. It doesn't feel as good as sitting across from your favorite customer service representative or favorite branch manager, and we understand that. It's a great experience to be able to sit down in an office and have an extended conversation and be able to smile at each other and have that feeling that, okay, this is an organization that I trust with everything in my life. We're trying to accomplish that as much as we can. We look forward to the day when we get back to more personal contact, but we have the technology stood up to take care of people during this time.
So how do you see moving forward? Do you think that you'll have to adopt new business practices at the bank, a new way of doing business, either like you're talking about, using Skype more, using drive-in services more, less people in the lobby? Hopefully we get back to a normal fairly soon, but going forward, as Dr. Fauci said yesterday, I would recommend people stop shaking hands, which to a banker and to a Chamber of Commerce president, that just seems like, whoa.
Well, we can talk about that offline. As you know, Bob, I'm also a biomedical engineer by training.
Right.
And so I have some pretty specific thoughts on the benefits of social interaction, including shaking hands and creating what we would call herd immunity across long spans of time.
Yeah.
And so just going into a mode where we completely isolate ourselves, I can assure you that the extroverts of this world will not allow that to happen.
No.
Now there's a lot of debate going on right now, as you might imagine, and I'm sure you've read about does this permanently change society? I would say that very likely this period of time, though everyone will remember it who lived through it, it's probably not going to be in place long enough to cause permanent long-term changes in how humans interact.
Yeah.
Those things change over long periods of time. But back to your question specific to banking, there have been there are secular changes that have been in the works and how people interact with financial institutions for many, many years. Those will continue. In some instances, they may speed up some. I actually expect that as soon as some of the bans against interaction are lifted and everyone feels comfortable, we may have a crush of people wanting to come into the bank, if for no other reason than to say hello and check on their favorite employees. We are, after all, a community bank. Yeah. And we have very close ties with all of our customers. And our customers, as we worry about our customers worry about us, and they're going to want to come in and check on people. The technology that we have been developing and we have been deploying over years, we will continue to do that. I see more and more and more customer interactions in the future will be handled via technology, but we were already starting to do that anyway. So I don't see this as a significant change. Like I said, it will speed some things up, but most of this stuff was already on a path to to becoming part of the daily life.
Absolutely. Over to you, Shelley.
Rob, I was just going to commend you because you know my whole thing about workplace culture is that I applaud you for all of the adjustments that you did with your team and really just embracing those behavioral changes and leaning into it with such grace. You know, I happen to be fortunate enough that Sharon Martin is my personal banker, and she's an amazing relationship banker. And I have to, say from the user side, for all of our listeners, that everything that you just talked about with the immediate speed and the communication that you guys took kept us very well informed. And again, I just want to applaud you for those efforts and give you a shout out for being on top of that and probably leading the way, as you said, for others. So are there any lessons learned that you can share with others who have not maybe applied yet that should apply, or just any errors that you see that people are commonly missing on the applications that's causing delay that our viewers or listeners need to know about?
Yeah, I would say the biggest issue is that the SBA tried very diligently to simplify the application. So the application itself is essentially one page. There's a second page with some attestations and certifications. It's mostly where you initial that certain statements are true or not true. And then there's 2 pages of instructions, basically. So what that gives the impression that that's all the information that the bank is going to need to process their loan. And in fact, it's not. We need additional information, payroll records, and other things like that. The Old Point, I believe, is we take our responsibility as a delegated. We have delegated authority from the SBA to make these loans. We take that responsibility very seriously. We think of this 349 billion as a limited resource, and so we're trying to make sure that people are asking for the right size loan to meet their needs. And there can be a difference sometimes between the maximum that you qualify for and what your actual needs are to make payroll over an 8-week period and to pay the other things that are allowed under the program, which are rent, lease payments, interest on mortgage payments, and utilities. So we don't want people to end up with a large residual amount. And so that does take a little bit of back and forth with the bank and with our relationship managers, making sure that we get all the proper documentation to document the loan. So having everything pulled together is going to be the most helpful. Anything that you have that can verify payroll records. And so if you were in business in 2019, you'll need your 2019 and 2020 payroll records. Anything that you have with regard to how much you're paying for rent, lease payments, or interest on a mortgage payment for your business, and also utility payments. And then we'll take all that information. There are going to be instances where we may need corporate bylaws or articles and other things to validate your identity, the identity of the organization, making sure the person who's applying has the authority given to them by the organization to apply for a loan. And then there's information that's required by the SBA on beneficial owners. Beneficial owners are people that have more than a 20% ownership stake in an entity or a corporation. So it is more complex than what the one-page application would imply. But we are very adept at helping people through that process. And like I said, we're testing a new online process right now that prompts people for that information. And so it's much more robust than most of the online portals that you're seeing that are just simply a fillable PDF form for the SBA application. This is a more robust platform that prompts people to give us that information up front so that when we get it, we don't have to go back to the customer several times asking for information. That is the most time-consuming part of this process at this point.
That makes sense. Those are good things. So, key thing I heard you say was, number one, have some patience with this.
Yes.
To be organized, maybe reach out to your relationship banker first and foremost to kind of get some of those checklist things if they haven't found
Yes.
it on site, have it together, and then apply, and it makes the process smoother for both you and them.
Yeah, anyone who gets in touch with us will get our package, which outlines all of the information that we need. We'll email that package to them, and they can begin pulling up that stuff together in advance. The one thing that's very important that I have to say, and this is not unique to Old Point, this is going to be true for every bank in the country right now. This is a first come, first serve program. And we are doing our absolute best, as we talked about before, working bankers' hours 24/7 to get as many applications processed as possible. But it is a first come, first serve program. Eventually, the 349 billion will run out. There's talks now about reauthorizing, but of course, Congress is not in session. So we have no idea when that's going to happen or actually, from a constitutional standpoint, how they will make it happen. But we're hopeful that they will. But people who are applying now and getting in line now need to understand that depending on the bank they're working with, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of applications in front of them right now. And there's no magic way to speed up that process, unfortunately. And so the sooner you start talking to your relationship officer, the better off you're likely to be. When the money runs out, it runs out. And we're all in the same boat here. This is not unique to Old Point. It's not unique to Hampton Roads. This is what everyone across the country is facing right now.
So Shelley, you asked a great question, and then Rob, you gave a great answer, and you also answered a series of questions that I had on my mind. So that was fantastic. It's great information. We did post your Paycheck Protection Program package on our newsletter that we sent out a few days ago. So
okay,
so we're helping you spread the word on that. So
we have a new one. We literally are updating it every day as we have more and more guidance from the SBA, and this program continues to change. I would love if I could say daily, but by the hour, this program continues to change. We had two pieces of information that were important for us to know come out yesterday, and I'm expecting a number of things to come out today. And we're expecting the Federal Reserve to give us some high-level information about the liquidity program that they promised to put on the street for us by Friday at the latest. So this is an evolving process. So be patient with your bank and with your banker. It is, and this is not unique to Old Point. This is changing every day. Simply communication within the bank is becoming is critical. Now we're fortunate at Old Point as a community bank. I get on a war room call every morning, and I have 40 of the top officers in the bank that are on that call with me, and we get to tell everybody at the same time what the latest is on these things. Larger banks, it's a lot more difficult to do that, and so it's easy to get inaccurate messaging from them. And so it's important for people to ask very specific questions of their banker and be patient.
fantastic. All right, I got one last thing.
Yes, sir.
In your role as longest serving member on the Chamber's Executive Committee. So it's fairly obvious to me, and maybe, I mean, we can have an offline conversation about this, but we're going to have to change the way we do business at the Chamber, certainly in the short term. Well, certainly we already have in the short term. I see, and I had a conversation with Brian Stevens at the Hampton Roads Chamber just recently, and we talked about 4 phases of getting past this, and we're in the survival mode right now, right? And then we'll go into recovery mode, and then a sustainment mode, and then a growth mode again. The timeline of that remains to be seen, hopefully fairly soon. I just wanted to let you know that I'm very happy to have you on the executive committee to help us wade through all that. And the first time that we're all going to get together is next week for our monthly executive committee meeting on a Zoom conference. But I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that and everybody else. We've got a good team, and we'll make some changes to our business model, but I think we're going to come through this okay. So any comments on that?
I have complete confidence that the Chamber will come through it okay. And I'm very hopeful that most of the businesses that are part of our Chamber will come through this also. Some businesses, because of their type of business, are able to adapt and continue to find revenue sources. Others have not been able to adapt that way. And hopefully the programs like the Paycheck Protection Program will give them some resources to be able to sustain. You know, one of the biggest problems in getting to that final phase, which is the growth phase, and getting there efficiently and effectively, is trying to limit the dislocation of workers. And so one of the things that is a bit misunderstood by some about the Paycheck Protection Program is it is meant to actually continue to pay people during this next 8-week time frame when there may not be any business to be done, but it's in lieu of them going on unemployment or perhaps even taking another job with another company. Because if we get through this and 25% of Americans have been displaced from their job and we all just switched jobs, we're going to have to go through a 6-month training period and retrain all of 25% of America to do new jobs. That is not efficient at all.
Yeah.
So getting to that growth phase, it is critical that people get the support that they need during this period, particularly if they can't find revenue sources to pay their employees so that they aren't dislocated. So that's why Old Point is doing what we're doing. That's why so many banks in the country are doing what they're doing. We hope and pray that there will eventually be enough time in the day and enough money from the federal government to assist all the small businesses that need help.
That
Excellent.
that
Good wrap up.
comment can lead into so many other conversation points that you just made. So hopefully on the next round, we can have you on longer as well. So again, thank you for coming on today. Thank you for listening and viewing and commenting and sharing. And please, if you heard anything that Rob said, is obviously lean into your banker, have the conversations now, have some patience. And then the other thing that is just lean into your fellow business owners and have conversations and talk about the innovation, talk about the creativity, talk about the collaboration, so you can not only survive, stabilize, but get back into the thriving piece. So thank you again for tuning in. My name is Shelley Smith. Back over to you, Bob, for final closing comments.
So yeah, Bob McKenna here to close out. And Rob, the next time we have you on, I'd like you to wear your biomedical engineer hat.
Very good.
Or maybe one of your old Navy ball caps with the blue cap with the gold letters on it from whatever ship you served on. But
yeah, maybe I'll pull out my old Batfish hat.
There you go.
You probably remember the Batfish.
Absolutely,
Old
absolutely.
diesel sub.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, good. That was fantastic, Rob. I really appreciate you taking time from your new banker's hours and busy schedule to be with us this morning. And we will definitely have you on again soon. So thanks very much.
Thank you for all you're doing with the chamber. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.